Jesus Christ already returned. Everything in the Bible already happened. Christianity ended in 70 AD. Today we should be living for God, not Jesus. Jesus finished his work. And then evil people took over the name of Jesus, and now we have this false religion that we have today called Christianity. Real Christianity only lasted for one generation. All things came to pass in the generation that Jesus Christ was there. Matthew was called the book of the generation of Jesus Christ. Jesus said that whenever the Gentile armies came to Jerusalem, that these would be the days of vengeance, whenever all things written would be fulfilled. That happened between 66 and 70 AD. God is the door today, and we should be living for God and God only. Every writer of the Bible said that Jesus Christ was coming back in their lifetime. They didn't lie. He did come back, and he fulfilled everything that he said. We can't actually talk of anything that Jesus Christ prophesied about for today. The only things he prophesied about was the destruction of Jerusalem, the wrath on the Jews, the believers fleeing, the temple being destroyed, nothing else. Hey, what's up, Tobias? So we should be living for God today, because Jesus Christ appeared once in the end of the world. It was the end of the world back then. He did a short work on the earth, and he delivered the kingdom back up to God. That's what it says in the Bible. A short work would the Lord make upon the earth, not a 2,000-year work. That generation didn't pass until all things were fulfilled. John was baptizing in Jordan. John was Elijah, which was for to come before the great and terrible day of the Lord. To preach the kingdom of heaven was at hand back then, not today. And he was baptizing in Jordan, and he said, O generation of vipers, who has warned you to flee from the wrath to come? The wrath was coming on them in their generation. I don't read Hebrew. There's no point in putting that up there. Will. Jesus has returned in the form of Trump. Stop. What's your thoughts on King Moses? What do you mean? Moses brought them the law. Jesus Christ came just like Moses said he would, one like unto their brethren. And it was Jesus that they had to hear. But everything in the Bible already took place. That's why Jesus said, some of you standing here will not taste death until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Because some of them would still be alive. There isn't still sin. You're not judged for sin, or else there would still be a grave. But everybody sees a light whenever they die, because sin is over. Because Jesus Christ already returned and fulfilled all of it. So what is the door exactly? God. You got to go straight to God today. That's the reason you have access. Don't tell me that I'm wrong. Tell Jesus that he's wrong and the apostles that they were wrong. Whenever they wrote to them back then and said, hold that fast what you have already until I come, and told them to gather themselves together, the more so as they saw the day approaching, that God would preserve their bodies, souls, and spirits until the coming of the Lord, that Jesus said that generation wouldn't pass until all things were fulfilled. You got to argue with them, not us. I'm not saying anything other than what the Bible says. Jesus has not returned as of today. When he comes back, the world will go dark. No. Jesus already returned according to the Bible. Like I said, he didn't prophesy anything about the whole world. He prophesied about the destruction of Israel and Jerusalem. There was great wrath upon that people, the Jews. They fell by the edge of the sword, and they were led away captive into all nations, just like he said. And then that temple was destroyed, and that generation didn't pass until all those things were fulfilled. Jesus is an allegory for the sun, sure. Israel was an allegory for the sun, too. It's fine. Jesus is the only way to salvation. No, he's not. He was back then. In their day, Jesus Christ was the way, the truth, and the life. But like I said, he did a short work on the earth, and he delivered the kingdom back up to God. What you think salvation is today is the Catholic and Protestant churches. How has, I'm not going to attempt to say that, been destroyed? Exactly like Jesus said, that generation didn't pass. The Roman armies came, trampled the city underfoot for 42 months. The Jews fell by the edge of the sword. They were led away captive into all nations. The temple was destroyed. Rome set their cities on fire. What time are we in now? You should be living for God. It's every 2,000 years. You've got Adam until Noah. That's about 2,000 years. And then he did something new in the earth. Men started living to be 120 years old. He gave them the Noahide laws. 2,000 years later, Jesus Christ came, ended the covenant that was made with Abraham. And they went into a new heavenly Jerusalem. And now we're 2,000 years of God having rights to all people on earth. We should be worshiping God today. You are preaching another gospel. I can't preach Paul's gospel, man. He already preached that gospel. He said he didn't build on another man's foundation, that he was the apostle to the Gentiles, and that he finished his course, and he told Timothy that by his mouth all of the Gentiles had heard the gospel. I can't preach what he was preaching, because he already finished it. Is there more complete Bible to reference and learn from? It's really not worth reading anything else. You've got enough Bible to tell you that it's already done. Just tell Jesus good luck with that mess, man. I'm only quoting what they said. James was the brother of Jesus. He said 2,000 years ago, he said, "Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries, for you have heaped up treasures for the last days." They were living in the last days, and then he said, the coming of the Lord drew nigh. It drew nigh 2,000 years ago. The book of Revelation already happened. Everything in it already happened. We've all just been duped by the Catholic Church and then the Protestant churches. The Bible actually already took place, and we should be living for God today, and God only. I know everybody's face palming and saying just random, putting out comments, that don't really mean anything. Well, good luck, you're wrong, and all this. But they don't give any verses. When was Satan locked up for 1,000 years? Well, you tell me. Jesus said, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. Now is the prince of this world coming, and he has nothing in me." Whenever Satan was cast down, he had but a short time. So, Revelations chapter 12, the woman clothed with the sun gave birth to Jesus Christ. That was Israel birthing Jesus. Jesus Christ was caught up to the throne, and then there was war in heaven, and Satan was cast down. So you know that Satan was cast down back then. Who were the two witnesses? It's not recorded in history. I don't know their names. But I know that they came at the exact same time that the believers fled. And in history, the believers fled for 1,260 days. In 66 AD, the armies came to Jerusalem, and the believers fled into the wilderness, and they were never heard from again, because they went out where they had a place prepared for 1,260 days. That was the same time that the two witnesses preached, but only their enemies beheld them, and then their enemies were destroyed afterwards, so it wasn't a witnessed event in history. It was inside the city, and they beheld them stand up on their feet, and they were caught up. And that's whenever the rapture took place. That's why the believers who fled into the wilderness were never heard from again. God said in Revelation, don't add to or take it, well, then everybody's doomed. I'm not giving any speculation. What did I add to or take away from? John was told, write the things which must shortly come to pass. Think about that for a second. All those plagues that were written in the book of Revelation came on the first century. But all these Catholic churches for 1,000 years, alone, and then the Catholics and the Protestants for the next 1,000 years, who all disagree with each other. Did the plagues written in that book come on them? Because all of the plagues written in that book came on the first century unbelievers in Israel. So who was it written to? It was written to them. John, write the things which must shortly come to pass. I, John, am your fellow brother and companion in tribulation. They were in the tribulation. The dead in Christ were waiting under the altar because the temple was still standing. Hold that fast which you have already until I come. Behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me. He who testifies of these things said, surely he is coming quickly. Even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Seal not the words of the book of this prophecy, for the time is at hand. I'm not adding anything or taking anything away from it, but Christians are. They're trying to put it in our day. But it's okay that you do, because those plagues don't come on you. But they did come on the first century. Can you please speak on Enoch and books cut from circulation? The Jews, even a long time ago, did not consider Enoch to be scripture. They said it was written by many different people. It would be weird to have a book that lasted since the seventh from Adam. That would just be strange. Before the flood, before anything, before Abraham, before Moses, before anything was written down in Israel, to have this book from the seventh from Adam would be, that's crazy. To even think that, Everybody in the world would be like, look at this, it's the oldest living document of all time, We don't have anything except for 4,000 years ago. That's whenever they started finding the writings and all the Actually, around the time of Noah's flood, if you listen to history, in Mesopotamia, that's whenever all the kingdoms and empires popped up at the same time and started writing and everything. So, what book applies to our current time? There isn't one. You have to go to God. Jesus told them the time is coming whenever you won't worship God in this mountain or at Jerusalem. People are trying to worship God at Jerusalem again today. Whenever Jesus said not one stone in that temple would stand upon another, he said, but the true worshipers would worship God in spirit and in truth. We don't have any books or laws today that we're supposed to follow. Everyone will know and heed God. No teaching will be necessary. He's quoting Revelation chapter 21, talking about whenever they were in New Jerusalem. It definitely wasn't talking about them on earth, but it said, after those days, saith the Lord, this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Jacob after those days. I'll put my laws in their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and they will be my people, and I will be unto them a God. And they shall not teach every man their neighbor, saying, know the Lord, for he shall be in them from the least even to the greatest. He said that in Hebrews, but he said, in saying a new covenant, he made the first one old. And back then, the old covenant was waxing old and ready to vanish away. Now, whenever that old covenant vanished away with the temple and Jerusalem, they went into New Jerusalem, a heavenly Jerusalem. Psalms 89 literally said that it was a heavenly, that David's city and kingdom was forever in heaven. Psalms 89, if you want to go read that. David's throne was forever in heaven. They went into a heavenly Jerusalem, and then God wiped all tears away from their eyes. Then there was no more death or crying. Then he was in them. They were his people. He was their God. That happened in heaven. The account of Jesus returning on a white horse, what of that? That happened in 66 AD, if you want to look up the main writing on it. That's Wars of the Jews. Wars of the Jews by Josephus. It's book 6, chapter 5. On the 21st day of Artemisius at sunsetting, there was seen a... The word means magnificent. I should probably figure out exactly what word they used. But they were seen a magnificent sight, that if you weren't there to see it, you wouldn't believe it. There were armies and chariots running on the clouds in shining armor. The word actually means it was huge or ginormous. I mean, that's the definition of the word that he used. That it was like, I don't know the word though, what he said. I am Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Yeah, read the last part of that. Read the last part of that. There's an end to it. There was an end to what Jesus did. He did a short work and
Hey, what's
delivered
up,
the
Derek?
kingdom back up again. Hey, what's up, bud?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just finishing up my dinner when you sent me the message, so I wanted to finish it before I got on.
Just seeing if you're coming in.
What's that?
I was just seeing if you were coming in.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to come in. I just wanted to make sure I was finishing everything before I came in.
I recommend
But,
Gabriel Lopez. Go back and read the New Testament again. I'm not against the Bible at all. I mean, you can read my books if you want, obviously. I'm not going to tell people not to do that. If I didn't think they were good, I wouldn't have written them. But go back and read the New Testament again, but this time believe what they said. Whenever they said the kingdom of heaven was at hand, they actually meant that the heavenly kingdom was at hand. Whenever Jesus said this generation will not pass until all these things are fulfilled, he meant it. Some of you standing here will not taste death till you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, he meant it. So just go back and read the New Testament again, but believe what they said and remember that they were writing to living people back then. Whenever Paul wrote to the Corinthians and said, this I say, brethren, the time is short. Let those who have wives be as though they have none. He was talking to them because the time was that short for them. They were to act like they didn't have wives. Think about how Christians today put everything in the Bible for our day. The event that happened in 70 AD, the event that happened in Jesus' time and the apostles' time, was more intense, spectacular. It was a greater event in Israel than even the carrying away into Babylon. It was the greatest event that had ever happened in Israel. Nothing, no destruction had ever taken place like 70 AD. But Christians think that the Bible never even talks about 70 AD. They think everything written in the Bible is talking about our day, and that none of that happened. They think that the Bible didn't even, the greatest prophets of all time, Jesus and the apostles, never even mentioned the greatest event that happened in their generation. So next time you read it, realize that they were talking about that event that happened in their lives, that Nero killed tens of thousands of them, that temple was destroyed, that the Roman armies did come, the believers did flee, that Jerusalem was Mystery Babylon. Sorry for all the coughing.
Yeah, and just like Derek said, just put yourself in real time when you're reading it and
You can't
understand
just
that
make up anything you want either, Lucas. You can't say that Christ is omnipresent. Never said that. Sorry. Go ahead, Don.
no, I was just saying that's the mistake people make. They don't read it in real time. You got to put yourself in real time and understand who those things were written to, and they were writing it when it happened. You know, so that's the mistake so many people make. They don't read it in real time. And remember
Where
that
did I
that
miss that Jesus Christ was omnipresent? Like, he actually said he was going away and he wouldn't talk with people much then because Satan was coming and he had nothing in him. So he sent them the Holy Spirit and he only appeared to them a few times between the time he left and the time he came back. And almost every time that he appeared to them, other than to save their life, if I remember correctly, was just to tell them to go to the Gentiles. He appeared to Peter for it. He appeared to Paul for it, to tell them to go to the Gentiles. But today you've got millions of people thinking they see Jesus every day whenever he said, I will not talk with you much now. And now you've got millions of people saying, I saw Jesus last night. Yeah, me too, me too, me too. Yeah, he just talks to everybody now.
I think the only two people after he ascended to heaven that he spoke to was Peter and Paul, right?
Yeah, and it was both about them going to the Gentiles.
Yep.
Because he hadn't left them that commandment before he left. That was something that first it had to be preached, had to start at the house of Israel. So. And he came to Peter so that Paul would be able to go to the Gentiles. Everybody would have thought that Paul was a phony, but as soon as Jesus, was talking to Paul on the road to Damascus, telling him that he would preach to the Gentiles, then Jesus went to Peter and said, Cornelius is coming, except the Gentiles. That way, Paul could have been, seen as a true apostle, because Peter also said that they were to go to the Gentiles. The Bible doesn't save, only God does. Yes, absolutely. He told them at that age, not 2,000 years in the future. Absolutely. I don't think we have that many people in here that disagree tonight. That's what happens, though, Whenever they can't really argue with you go to somebody else's live, and they know that they can argue. Everybody in another live feels superior than the host, and biblical knowledge, so they can all stand there and argue forever, but where are all my haters? They're hardly ever in here. I don't block them or anything. They don't come in and use any Bible verses. They just come in and say you're wrong. I'll pray for you.
But then when you ask them what did I say was wrong? How am I wrong? They can't tell you.
Yeah, they never answer. They say everything.
Yeah, like that guy. That guy said to you when he was questioning you, and I said, "What did Derek say that was wrong? What did we say that was, excuse me, that was wrong?" And he said, "Oh, everything."
Yeah. I guess it's just like Jesus. He just kept shutting them down back then. So I'll talk about anything that people want to talk about, because I told you I'm going live every night at 8, and I'll keep doing this until it builds up or there's nobody left to come in. But I'm still going to go live every night. Where I literally host a no rules debate forum, really an open source and unyielding. Opposite opinion. Oh yeah, I have a page on Facebook called No Rules Religious Debate. And I don't kick anybody out. I actually block the people that report comments on that page. So
I didn't know.
it's
I didn't know
completely
about it.
opposite of everybody else. If somebody reports stuff, it tells me, and then I kick out the people who report and they're little babies about stuff. Oh
I
no!
didn't.
I should have said
I
that.
didn't. I didn't. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know about that page, Derek.
Can you explain why you shouldn't say Yeshua or what that name means? You shouldn't talk about any of them because he was the son of Yahweh. Yahweh was given whenever he gave them the law. It was a curse, and Jesus Christ was his son. He came to fulfill the curse of the law, everything that he gave. Before that, God was just known as God Almighty to Abraham and to everybody before. But he gave a name to Moses whenever he was giving the children of Israel a curse. And then Jesus Christ came and fulfilled that curse. And whenever he did, and he ended that whole covenant on earth and established the everlasting kingdom in heaven that they went into, they both received new names so that nobody on earth knows. God received a new name. Nobody on earth knows it. We just know it as the Word of God or the truth or God Almighty. And Jesus and the apostles received new names. Nobody on earth knows them. So whenever people are praying to Jesus down here, they're actually praying to a fallen entity that rules this world today through fake Christianity.
And it's a different fallen entity than Satan, because Satan is
Yeah.
no longer here. He was destroyed when the altar became and the temple became chalkstones, and it tells you that in Isaiah chapter 27.
Yeah, Satan actually brought sin into the world, and Jesus ended that sin. Therefore, people could ascend into heaven. They could go up to heaven, because whenever Satan was cast down, it said, "Now has come salvation and the power of our God, and or the kingdom." What did it say? Of God and the power of His Christ. For the accuser of the brethren is cast down. And then it said, "Rejoice, you that are in heaven." Once Satan was cast down, they could go up into heaven. But today, this fake Jesus tells everybody that sin still exists. The devil was in the world, but he was destroyed whenever the temple was destroyed. Whenever that altar was made chalkstones. Isaiah chapter 27, Leviathan, the slithering serpent, was destroyed. Somebody asked something. When was Christ's reign with the rod of iron? Whenever he got power over the Gentiles. He got power over the Iron Kingdom, the Kingdom of Rome. It's literally called the Iron Kingdom. He got power over the Gentiles, and God put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to destroy Jerusalem and Israel and make Mystery Babylon desolate, destroy their temple. So he ruled with the rod of iron. That's why he said in the Gospels that there would be great wrath on the Jews whenever the Gentiles came, because that was the wrath. He wielded Rome, the rod of iron, the Iron Kingdom. Oh yeah, thanks, Gabriel. Christ finished sin. Right? Yeah, Christ finished sin. Said he appeared once in the end of the world to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself, and to those that looked for him, he appeared a second time without sin unto salvation. Sin wasn't over until Christ returned. People trying to make sense of the Bible today, they try to say it was finished at the cross. It was all finished at the cross. No, it wasn't. They still had to keep themselves from sin. It wasn't finished until Christ returned. They were still under the law until Christ returned. You know, Gentiles had the law of God inside of them by the Holy Spirit only. The Jews still had to keep the law until Christ returned. He didn't conquer death until the resurrection. No, he didn't conquer death until the resurrection. That was the last enemy that he defeated. Whenever the resurrection happened, now it's, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" Whenever you die, you see a light. You can go straight into heaven. You're not trapped in the grave anymore. Yeah, sin and the grave are conquered, yes. Never said that Jesus would end evil, though. It's not okay to be evil, and there's no reason for us to be evil today. We don't contend with sin, so there's no reason to judge somebody else for their flesh, so there's no reason to do evil. We're not trapped in our graves waiting for the return of Christ. Your body's just your body. It doesn't matter if you get burned or not. What's the difference? Your ashes will turn to dust or your body will turn to dust.
Doesn't matter about cremation. I was reading a comment from Gary Freeberg. Doesn't matter. Cremation doesn't matter either.
Right. Yeah, it's all a lie. You don't have to be baptized for the dead anymore. The reason for baptism was their new world started with Noah, just like Peter said. See, God destroyed the world because of sin, but he said he'd never destroy everybody off the face of the earth again. But he had destroyed the world because of sin, and then he promised he wouldn't do that again. Instead, he was going to call Abraham and bring a redeemer. So their world restarted with Noah, and that's why they had to be baptized for the dead. It was their way of saying, look, we're baptized in Christ. We believe in your plan after Noah, of bringing a redeemer. We believe in him. We're already dead, so don't punish us, So they were dead with him, just like they had all passed through the flood. They were dead with him until the return of Christ. There's a lot of dead today that are just ghosts walking around because they're afraid to go into the light, but there's an end of every age. And at the end of this age, they'll be sucked up into the light also. Some people went into the light. Some people stayed on earth. There's tons of ghost stories, and most people, if they're being honest, have dealt with one at some point or another.
Some people may have dealt with them and didn't even know that they were dealing with them.
Yeah. We're here because it's not going to end. This age isn't going to end the earth either. The earth wasn't going to end. He said that the Jews would fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations, and the temple would be destroyed at the end of that age. It wasn't a destruction of the entire planet, or you wouldn't say, hey, flee Judea, get out of Judea because there'd be great wrath here. He would say, doesn't matter, I'm going to destroy the whole earth. But that was just the destruction of that. Yeah, you can definitely all you got to do is start talking about a ghost and you already summoned it. That people getting into the spirit to get in touch with ghosts is absolutely real, yes. Anybody can do that, but you can get in touch with it. If somebody dies and you find that all of a sudden you're saying words that they would have said and wanting to eat or drink things that they used to drink, a lot of the times people are dealing with ghosts and they don't even know it. Angels can visit us today. Most demons on this planet are people. Demons on the old planet, or the devils on the old planet, were the people who were once with God and then fell away. But now, God is all in all. And whenever people fall away and they don't go to the light, they're demons. They fall away from the light, They fell away from truth.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't know that the way it works today is you either become an angel, a messenger of God when you die if you have a good heart, or you become the opposite of that when you pass in this life. Whatever your heart was, those are the characteristics you take on after you pass from this life.
I don't know who Bill Donahue is. I don't actually look up stuff. I believe that that's a problem with the world. All of us should stop Googling all the time, and our Google should be having dreams from God, Everybody's looking at all these people putting stuff together that never even knew God, and it is impossible for any of it to be completely true. It can't be completely true unless somebody knows God. The temple's being rebuilt today where? They just called a UN Security Council an emergency meeting because a Jew walked on the Temple Mount for 15 minutes. Where is it being built?
They've been
And
saying
I've
that
heard
for
that since I was
years.
a kid.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard that for years too. Oh, they're rebuilding the temple. Oh, they just laid a cornerstone for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also heard that the Heifers were there. I remember my Pentecostal part of my family, everybody was scared whenever I was like 8 years old. They were like, "Oh, the Heifers are in Israel," and I'm like, What's a heifer? Why are you guys worried about a heifer being in Israel?" Like, I didn't even know what was going on. Yeah,
Mormons
there's
building
temples
temple.
everywhere.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't count anyway. Mormons building temples.
The Holy Spirit that they had was in their flesh. Their bodies were the actual temple of God because sin still existed. So they had a flesh name to recite of somebody who they had handled in the flesh, which was Jesus Christ. That name had power, and it gave them power over the flesh. That's why they could do all manners of healings and heal the blind and raise the dead, because they had the Holy Spirit in their flesh. It made their actual bodies the temple of God. That's why they weren't allowed to sin, because it kept them from sin until sin ended. The only Holy Spirit you can have now is by being an honest person in your everyday life. Then you'll be following God, and you'll have His Spirit inside your spirit, not inside your flesh. We can't receive it in the flesh today. Yeah, they bring the heifers every few years. They name a new Messiah every few years. If you look that up, it's not a new thing. They do it all the time. You get rebuked when you do something wrong, absolutely. If you lie or something, he doesn't care about your flesh. He doesn't care what you're eating, drinking, watching, listening to, who you sleep with, all that stuff, as long as you're not doing anything evil to somebody else. But yeah, whenever I've lied or something, I got rebuked pretty harshly, had to fix it right away. Oh yeah, it'll affect you if you do stuff. If you're following God and you're naming God only and you do stuff like that, it will affect you. You'll either fall away from truth or it can affect your health and everything. He said that the unbelieving wife was sanctified by the husband and the unbelieving husband was sanctified by the wife. Yeah, he said that back then. But then he also said in the same passage that if they wanted to depart, to let them depart, because he said, "How will you know if you'll save your wife? Or how will you know if you'll save your husband?" And a brother and sister is not in bondage in such cases. So you got to read Paul as in a whole. Don't just take one verse from it. Because what would really happen is one of them would leave, right? If they didn't want to leave, you would sanctify them, but, right? Because they would turn to the truth. But if you kept going and they kept going with no truth and you kept going in the truth of Jesus, eventually you guys would depart and split up because of it. And he said, let them depart. You're not in bondage in such cases. It was all about enduring unto the end. It's a completely different world. We have to understand that the flesh is over, sin is over. There's no temple. The jots and tittles passed from the law. Sin and the law ended whenever that temple was destroyed, and that's why we have access to God today. If God still saw our flesh, we would not have access to God today, unless we had Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, and we kept ourselves from sin. That's the only way we would have access to God. But the reason God is all in all after Christ finished his work is because sin, the grave, and Satan are over.
Yep.
Now, look at them. Look at all the people, and look who's giving people this Holy Spirit today. Sometimes these preachers are up there doing evil to little children and then coming out and laying hands on people, and they're receiving this Spirit. Oh, cool. Thanks, Lucas. Oh yeah, that's his smoke detector. It's been beeping for years. He doesn't hear it
What?
anymore.
Who? Me?
Yeah, your smoke detector chirping in the background.
Oh, I never noticed it.
Yeah, you got to change the batteries. I told you about it a couple times. I guess
I
you've
don't
just
know.
gotten immune to it.
Yeah, I mean it's just I don't know, man. I just like it's uh thing. That's how they drive me nuts sometimes.
There's always something, huh?
Yeah, really.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Through baptism, individuals receive the Holy Spirit. I think it's on everyone already. Yeah, you're born now. It's just like David said in Psalms, though. He said that the wicked separate themselves from God at their birth. Like some people just, they become wicked at birth. They choose, we do have spirits in us, regardless of how smart we are. Some people fall away right away. Some people fall away from truth later, but every time we're born, we're presented with truth and lies. You know, you got the argument on both sides of people saying, well, children only know how to tell the truth till you teach them how to lie. And then other people say children only know how to lie until you teach them how to tell the truth. And that's not true. They know how to lie and how to tell the truth. You know? Well, that was written to them back then. Many came in Christ's name back then. They called John of Giscala the Messiah, Simon Bar-Jorah the Messiah. They even anointed somebody that wasn't of the tribe of Levi, named Jesus, as high priest. It was blasphemy according to the law while they were trying to protect the law. They killed all the priests and everybody in Israel and took over the temple, rejected Christ, called themselves and others the Messiah. And many
Yep.
Christians fell away from the truth under Nero and under the Zealots. No, I mean, there's no part of the New Testament that I don't know. I can't quote every word in order, but there's nothing that somebody could say in the New Testament that I wouldn't know whether or not it was in there or not. Yeah, children can lie and tell the truth. I've got 4 biological children and 2 step, and I've seen children from birth act certain ways, and I've seen some change, and I've seen them act different ways from birth. So
All of us have the ability to either lie or be honest.
yeah, I don't know of anybody that knows the Bible as well as me either. I'm not bragging, I'm just telling the truth. What do you think about people nowadays supposedly getting word from God? They're not. Not unless they are going to God directly and are honest in their own life. If they go through any door, they're not getting anything from God. Yeah, I'm sure the Pharisees knew the scriptures better than I do. Which is sweet. Yeah, he thinks that Paul was the spirit of truth.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's crazy. When I saw that video, oh, Paul was the spirit of truth. I'm like, yeah, even though the apostles received the spirit of truth before Paul did,
yeah.
somehow Paul was the spirit of truth.
The thing is, if people lie in their own life and they're dishonest, they can't ever know the truth.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe.
people can't understand Paul because he was just too smart for them. That's all.
Well, yeah, Derek. I was thinking about it. Of course, he's dead now, but maybe the only person that memorized the Bible more than you was Jack Van Impe.
It seems like I've heard that name before, actually.
Yeah, he was called the Walking Bible, but of course he was wrapped up in these false things too. And it just
Yeah,
shows you can memorize all the scriptures you want, but if you're not if God is not setting it straight, if you're not honest and God is not setting it straight for you, then it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Hey, design. um, God is real, and He cares about truth and honesty. Sometimes in this world, nobody has God. Everybody's looking, but they didn't go far enough to actually get God, to make Him move again. And that's all throughout the scriptures. He looked down on Noah's time. He wasn't even watching for a long time. He just let him go because nobody was calling on him. He looked down and saw how evil everybody was. There's times whenever, like it said in the law, nobody seeks, nobody's looking for him, in all the earth. You actually have to know God. It's important, and Satanists don't. Satanists are just, I don't know, trying to do something different just like everybody else. They're not sinning because there's no such thing as sin, but they're doing evil. But so are Christians. They're all in the same boat. There's really no difference. Everybody in some religion has a little something better than other religions and things worse than other religions, or they wouldn't be a separate religion. How can you have two different religions if some don't have something better and something worse? There has to be a difference between them somehow.
Or there wouldn't be two different religions.
Yeah, exactly. So salvation is of ourselves and Jesus paid the price for nothing. No, that's not true. That's not a true statement whatsoever. Say one true statement and start with one true statement, not anything that wells up in you with emotion, makes you feel like putting a comment like that. But say one true statement, start there, and then make sure everything you say is completely true. Like you can say, Jesus said this generation will not pass until all these things are fulfilled, so that must mean something. Jesus said, some of you standing here will not taste death until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Again, must mean something. Did they actually write those letters and send them to living people back then? Was it important to them? Was he talking directly to them? Yes. Jesus Christ was the gospel of reconciliation, and that's what he did. He wasn't here to take God's throne for all of eternity, but he did receive a throne over the house of David and New Jerusalem in heaven. But he came to do a short work on the earth, Romans 9:28, and he delivered all things back to God, 1 Corinthians 15:24 through 28. And then he became subject to the Father. It was the gospel of reconciliation to reconcile us back to God. So we have access to God today. When did we fall away from God? Whenever Satan tempted Adam and Eve to sin, all people fell into sin, so they went to the grave. So when did we get reconciled back to God and have no need of a savior anymore? Whenever Jesus finished his work, he defeated Satan and the grave and sin. Now we have access to God again. It's crazy how there are way more Muslims over people believing God in Christ. Oh yeah, the Muslims are just like a sect of Christianity, really. Yeah, and if like Tobias said, from Adam to Zacharias, the judgment came. It came on that generation, all the prophets from Adam until Zacharias. The reason Zacharias was important is because it was John the Baptist's father. And Jesus said the law and the prophets prophesied until John. So all the blood from Cain and Abel, until Zacharias, before John the Baptist, was required at the hands of that generation. That also means all the prophets were fulfilled. You can't require all their blood unless you fulfill what they said first.
Yeah, and they were the ones that were resurrected at the end of Matthew, and that were resurrected at the end of Matthew, and then they went to wait under the altar for Jesus in Abraham's bosom or paradise, and of course anybody else who died in Christ before he returned from that time on, excuse me, from that time on also went to wait under the altar.
Yeah. The seals and the trumpets, they just waited, Kelly, they waited in the grave until Jesus Christ died and went down and preached the gospel to them. And once he preached the gospel, then hell was opened, and the evil souls went to Gehenna, where they burned the dead bodies in Israel, or outside of Jerusalem. They waited for 40 years until the judgment, and the believers went up and waited under the altar in the temple, like it said in Revelation. The seals and the trumpets already happened. That was before Mystery Babylon was destroyed. That was before Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple was made
No,
desolate. The vials destroyed Jerusalem. The
no.
seals were pretty simple. It was just what was happening in their time back then. You've got the first seal, the white horse goes out to conquer. Nero's given power over the saints. And then you've got the second seal, Israel started fighting each other. You had sects in Israel going with Rome, and other people saying, if you're with Rome, we'll kill you. So it took peace from the earth, or peace from the land of Israel. And the Jews started fighting one another. And then you've got the third seal, a measure of wheat for a penny, a measure of barley for a penny. Because a fire burnt Rome down, mostly to the ground, in 64 AD, Nero went and got money from everybody. I mean, he completely broke everybody to rebuild Rome again, and it brought poverty. And then he was given power over a fourth part of the land of Israel. There were 600,000 Jews living in Israel back then, and he was able to kill a fourth part of them, 144,000. That was the tribulation. And then the fifth seal tells you that those that came out of that great tribulation were waiting under the altar, crying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, do you not avenge our blood on them which dwell on the earth? And he said, yet a little while until your fellow brethren are killed, and he gave them white robes. And then the sixth seal happened, and that's the wrath of the Lamb. Once the 144,000 were done being killed, the wrath of the Lamb could start, because they had to make up that temple or that city in heaven first. Jesus Christ went away to prepare a place for them. While he was doing that, preparing New Jerusalem and his kingdom in heaven, they were on earth preaching the gospel. And as they were sealing up and saving the 144,000, once that was complete, they could come back with Jesus. Because once Jesus came back with all of his holy angels or his saints with him, then he would sit on the throne of his glory. And then he would bring the wrath on Israel. And they would be given 12 thrones to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. But he went away to prepare that place for them, and as they were being saved, he was building their places in heaven. And then once that was fulfilled, he could bring his wrath. Oh, what's up, Crowcall?
Hey, what's up, Mike? Roll call.
I know that Jesus said he was the way, the truth, and the life, and you'd be absolutely right if you lived in the first century, not if you lived under these Catholic churches that killed the whole world, or these Protestant churches that killed the entire world to make them accept Christ. They came after the fact, after the marriage supper already came. But you got to believe the rest of the Bible. That generation didn't pass till it was all fulfilled. Jesus Christ did a short work on the earth, delivered the kingdom back to God, became subject to the Father. At the marriage supper, the Lord God omnipotent started reigning. And then he became the way, the truth, and the life. It was delivered back to God. The mark of the beast was the law. Whenever the law was given, it was given as a curse. And it said in Exodus and Deuteronomy, bind this upon your hand and let it be for frontlets between your eyes. It said, let this be for a sign upon your hand and a memorial between your eyes, so that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. And that was their curse. Jesus Christ came to fulfill the curse of the law, being made a curse for them. He ended the law, but they tried to keep the law instead. They said, no, this temple won't be destroyed, and they rejected Jesus Christ, and they tried to keep the law. It's what Jesus was talking about whenever he said they make broad their phylacteries, because they had this little scroll that they would write laws on the front and the back. And then they had little boxes that they put it in, and they'd put a box hanging down on their forehead with this little scroll in it called tefillin or phylacteries, and they'd put it on their hand. And they would not allow Christians into the temple to exchange their currency so that they could buy and sell. They would kill you if you were a Christian. They took over the temple. The law was the mark of the beast, the very thing that Jesus Christ came to fulfill. They kept it. They rejected him. They said the temple wouldn't be destroyed. They called other men the Messiah. Whenever Simon Bar-Jonah came back to town to help John of Giscala fight the Romans, it said over 1 million Jews bowed down and worshipped him as the Messiah. They thought that he was the one that it was prophesied about that would come and save them. It was actually the fact that every knee bowed and every tongue confessed, Brandon. That's what caused the religion that we have today. Because the people who didn't see, Jesus was always telling them, and this will blow your mind whenever you're reading the Gospels again. He talked about a separation whenever he returned. He would separate them from each other. Well, the believers fled into the wilderness. See, the tribulation came on the believers, but the wrath was for the unbelievers. So anybody who wasn't watching, anybody who wasn't looking, anybody who didn't endure till the end, they were trapped inside of Jerusalem and they were destroyed. Well, whenever everything Jesus Christ said finally came to pass, and the people were like, oh my God, he did destroy the city. Everything he said was true. He destroyed it. The temple's gone. We tried to protect the temple, but he destroyed it. He was the Messiah. So then they started trying to worship Christ after the fact. But the marriage supper had already come, the door was already shut, and he already received a new name. So they came and knocked afterwards. You know, they die. They go up to that light. They tried to knock on the door and say, Jesus, Jesus. And he said, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you. It's not even his name anymore. They can't get in. The door's shut. But the people that were left behind made this fake religion that we have today. Yeah, it's the exact opposite of what real Christianity was. Real Christianity was persecuted. Few there were that found it. They didn't have money. Everything was taken from them. They didn't fight, you know. They were a small religion. And then the evil people took it over after Jesus finished his work. And now they've had the most money, the most power, the most powerful armies, the biggest religion, the least persecution, the most powerful men in the world swear on the Bible before they can rule. It's insane.
Churches on every corner, just about. Yeah, and think about the fact that back then they were all in agreement. But when you look at it today, you have 40 some thousand and you can, and this, I recommend you Google it just to confirm what me and Derek have said about it. There are over 40,000 denominations, 40,000 denominations of Christianity. All say they have the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, but they all disagree with each other. It supposedly tells them all something different, and they all condemn one another, and they all lie. So how can that be real?
Yeah, that New Jerusalem. The reason I don't say much whenever Don says stuff is because we agree with each other. So he just doesn't need my, uh, saying, "Oh yeah, that's right, Don," every time, because he's here to help, not for me to, you know. But so what I was saying is just listen to what he's saying because I agree with him. The New Jerusalem never actually came to the earth. I've had plenty of dreams from God, and whenever John saw that, he said he saw New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. He was just seeing that God prepared it for them in heaven. If you read everything else in the Bible, including Psalms 89, it said that the throne of David would be forever in heaven. It was a place in heaven. Jesus came and said, your reward is in heaven. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. He said, your reward is great in heaven. He went away to prepare a place for them. He ascended to heaven, so that where he was, they could be there also. It said the kingdom of heaven came without observation. You couldn't say, look, it's here in the sea, or lo, it's there. Hebrews said, we have here no continuing city, but we look for a better hope and heavenly. Paul said, if the earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a home eternal in the heavens. Their reward was up there. It was in heaven. New Jerusalem is a heavenly Jerusalem. But the churches today do exactly what the unbelieving Jews did back then. They're looking for a kingdom on earth. Whatever you want, God will answer any one of your questions, Gabriel. As long as you know that God is the door and you are honest in your everyday life, it's the only two criteria. You have no reason to hide your flesh because sin is over. People will hate you for it, They'll hate you for being honest, but that's all you got to do. Ask God any question, then lay down and take a nap. He'll answer it. Anything you want to know. I haven't seen anything that says that reincarnation is real. I know that John the Baptist came in the spirit and power of Elijah, but no, I haven't seen anything about reincarnation. Whenever people are, all these stories about reincarnation, it's really just ghosts. Especially kids are susceptible to ghosts, they're still spiritual, they still have that innocence or whatever. However, they're connected, but they're more spiritual than we are, have more faith and everything. But you'll hear these kids like retelling stories of people from the past. That's just because they're living in a place where there's ghosts. People died on that land before, or their grandparents never went to the light and they're having dreams of it and everything. And they have these memories of past lives, but it's usually just ghosts. I think that you've got 4.5 billion people geared towards the Temple Mount, man. Whatever you ask for is what you receive in life. If you've sought money your whole life, if that's really what you did and you were a go-getter, you're going to wind up with money. That's what you're going to do. If you looked for a simple life with, one person or something and did all that, that's what you're going to receive, And 4.5 billion people, their spirits are all geared towards making something happen on the Temple Mount, or a temple being rebuilt, or this end coming, or their spirits are what controls the world. So I don't know if we asked to live on this earth or not. I really don't. I lived in my grandparents' house and had the same visions as my mom, who grew up in the house. Yeah, there was just ghosts in the house, man. That's all it was. All you got to do is be honest, man. Your neighbors might hate you for it, but you got to actually be honest. Honesty can make you lose some stuff. He said, "Oh, I know."
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely get to choose. He does. And we can't hide anything at all. Most of the time, praying out loud is manipulation. It's not always. If you're an honest person, you can pray out loud. You can have dreams. You can do whatever you want, as long as you're being honest. But most people's prayers are them just trying to manipulate God. Like He doesn't see what they're doing. This world thinks that God is not going to do anything to them. Islam thinks they can do all the atrocities they want. Christianity thinks they can do all the atrocities they want, and God's never going to see it or do anything. That's what they've got in their minds. That's not true. God hates evil. He always will. Yeah, you don't have to read a Bible to come to God. Jesus wasn't sent to us, but most people know about the Bible already, so they should understand that it's over. You don't want to throw away the things of God either. It's like how Jesus said, He said, a scribe brings out of the treasure of his heart things both old and new. They didn't throw away the Old Testament and say, Jesus is a new way, like the Gnostics did or anything. They didn't throw away the new way and keep the old like the Pharisees did, but they said, no, the old was from God and the new is from God, and they understood both. So anybody who knows about Jesus shouldn't cast him off. They should understand what he did in history if they're being honest. But yeah, you don't have to have a Bible to know God. That would be ridiculous to think that we had to read a book to know God or something. I was just saying most people already know. I don't know what Isaiah 24 says. You'd have to tell me, but That was the craziest story ever, but who doesn't know about it today? I mean, we live in the year of our Lord, 2023. Like, that's what most of the world considers the date. Hey, Roach just got on and talked about your, I guess you got to change your batteries, Don.
Yeah, I better call the fire. Better call the fire department.
You'd have to give me some words in Isaiah, but I don't know the Old Testament as well as I know the New. I might know what it says, but yeah, everything in it was about Christ. Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It's written of me to do thy will. But then people are trying to write off Jesus by using the old today, not understanding that he was the completion of man. He was the Son of Man. He was the completion of it, They'll say, well, it wasn't talking about Jesus in that verse. Like, Hebrews will say, how art thou mindful of him, the Son of Man, that he had preeminence over all the animals. Well, Jesus was the fulfillment of being a Son of Man, according to the Old Testament. So and they try to say, oh, the virgin birth wasn't about, it's the whole thing, types and shadows. The Lord's devastation of the earth. I would have to read that, but most of the time it's talking about land whenever it's talking about it. Where does he draw the line then to make him be like, nope, you're going to the lake? If you're a liar, if you've cheated on people and everything else and you're still harboring stuff like that, or if you've stolen from people, you need to go back and tell them. That way you'll have a clean conscience and you'll start being honest all the time. You can't, without fixing our past lies, at least the ones that were important that did damage to somebody else, we can't just move on to honesty. We'll still be liars. So the first thing we have to do is correct the things that we did before. And then we can move on to have good conscience toward God and always be honest. Well, honesty is always a good thing. It just doesn't always have good outcomes in your life. Well, you don't have to forgive them unless they say something to you. You don't, unless all they did was flesh stuff, But on top of that, you're the one that got in a relationship with them and put something too hard on them to where they couldn't do it anyway. Relationships just make us lie to each other. You put this thing on them saying, you're not allowed to think about, want, like anybody else. You're not allowed to do this. And then we got to hide all the time. And you both know that you're causing the other person to lie, but you both live in that lie the whole time. So I guess you could forgive them in that way.
Is it raining outside?
We have everything. God gave us everything. We're not condemned. We don't have to do what they did. You don't got to bow yourself down. You don't got to fast. You don't got to pray all the time. You don't got to keep your flesh under subjection because Satan's not in heaven hindering your prayers. You don't have to make it through there because he doesn't have the accuser of the brethren isn't judging your flesh anymore to where you have to live right. That's why he called Abraham and gave him circumcision to cut off the flesh where the seed came from. That was a way of God saying, all right, I have rights to your flesh if you do this. And then that means you have to keep your flesh under subjection. Why? Because he had to call a seed that could birth a savior. So they brought forth Jesus Christ. That was the whole point. After enough of them were virgins and enough of them rejected the flesh, and there were enough eunuchs and enough prayer made, they travailed in birth and brought forth a savior. I hope you have a good night too. Take it easy. Well, yesterday there was 100 and some people in here for an hour or so, but today 28. TikTok does whatever it wants. Sometimes people just stay in, and sometimes they don't. Lucas, there's nothing wrong with somebody saying to be honest. There's something wrong with saying not to be honest.
Yeah, if somebody tells you shouldn't be honest, you want to go the other way.
Are these separate or the same? Everybody is a living soul. A spirit is like an emotion or the feeling or whatever governs you, you know? And the spirit, you can call your spirit your heart. That's the same thing. Consciousness can be good or bad. That doesn't matter. So really all you need to know is everybody has a living soul, and it's up to their spirit and what spirits they accept around them. That's what changes whether or not their soul is good or their soul is evil. I will see you in a year ago, and then I just now started seeing you again. Oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't been going live that much. Hey there, y'all. I want to say I believe that the Bible has all been fulfilled. But I do think that. How does he not have ownership of that seed to begin with? Adam and Eve listened to Satan. See, God made free will. Adam and Eve had every right to listen to Satan, you know. So they did. They listened to Satan to create the flesh through lust. And whenever they created the flesh through lust, who was their ruler? They obeyed Satan's word. Therefore, everybody born after that was robed in sin. So Satan had rights to their flesh. So God called Abraham, said, cut off the part where the seed comes from, reveal it, and I will have a covenant with you, and this will mean that your flesh is mine. He didn't deal with the rest of the world like he dealt with Jerusalem or Israel because they weren't circumcised. They weren't in his covenant. So their lives just played out unless they came against his covenant people. That was different. All I saw in your comment was you said, but I do think that, Stormy, and I never saw the next part of it. It says, but I do think that. I never saw the rest. How about we are a spirit, we have a soul, and live in a body? Yeah, that's fine. Our spirit's what governs us. It's emotions and everything. It's our driving force. It can be good or evil, and that's what corrupts our soul or not. True man of God. Get paid big to listen to Derek. True man of God. I don't know what that means exactly. I know it's a good comment coming from you. I just don't know what you mean by it. Truthful and monogamous. There's not a man alive that whose heart is actually towards monogamy, Wild Stormy. It doesn't happen. Women like security and everything, but there's not a man alive whose heart would be that way. You can choose to be a virgin if you want. If you guys want to choose to be together or whatever, that's fine, but just know his heart's not going to be in that. Well, to me, Jacob, this is the most important thing in the world. I could just go work like I always did before, but if truth is important enough, it'll get out there. If not, it won't. And I'm going to live my life by it and on it. That's what I'm doing. So. But
When it
thank you,
comes
man.
when it comes right down to it, the only things that matter in this world are God and truth. That's it.
Yeah, I'm actually writing a lot right now, too. I'm trying to do the whole New Testament. I'm trying to explain the whole New Testament. I haven't told anybody that yet, but I'm spending a lot of time. I didn't write much yesterday. but that's my goal right now, is to spend a lot of time. Sometimes I'm writing like 6-7 hours a day, sometimes more. I'm explaining Matthew, and then I'm going to explain Mark. I don't care. It just has to be out there. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep doing it. If I die, I guess he just didn't want that out there. So, but I'm explaining the New Testament verse by verse. Thanks, Jacob. I think that people, you said, what's your thoughts on the New Age spirituality and law of attraction? It's just manipulation. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. People manipulate people into things all the time. If somebody really believes something, it's going to happen, just like in false religions, Spirituality can't actually, it doesn't make us good or evil. You can be evil spiritually, you can be good spiritually. At the end of the day, the only thing that's important is being honest and going straight to God. We don't do this law of attraction thing because I don't want something that God isn't giving me, you know? But does it work? It has to work in some form or another. Everybody's a spirit. We see the flesh of people, but it's actually our spirits that are interacting and governing ourselves. So, I wouldn't even get into all that stuff. Just be sure that your spirituality is God. Because everybody else is in the same boat. It's like Jesus said. He said, do you think that the men who the tower fell on were sinners above all? He said, but you'll all likewise perish unless you came to him. Whenever he was the truth, all people perished unless they came to him. I'm not going to tell people something weird, that God is not the door, or that you don't have to know God, or that you don't have to be honest. I'm not telling anybody that stuff. I'm saying God is very important. God is honest. God is truth. God wants a relationship with us, and we should know God. And that's the only thing that'll separate us. Everybody else is in the same boat. Everybody's trying to be different, just like everybody else. And they're all just Googling things that don't matter on a daily basis. Jesus had more knowledge than anybody in the world, any man that's ever been down here, and he never brought any of it up. You didn't see him talking about DNA or Nephilim or anything like that because it was not important. Yeah, the only way to have truth is to be honest. And let's say that you believe, Lucas, I was seeing some of you guys' conversation, that you cannot be 100% honest. Why aren't you trying with all your might, though, all that you know, to be 100% honest? You should at least do that. What's wrong with it? Yeah. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
Just be honest. I didn't say you don't have to do anything in the flesh, man. Just be honest. You think it should still be controlled? How far do you go with that, Wild Stormy? Should we stop eating bacon? Should we make sure that we stay exactly? I mean, where does the judgment come? That's like starting a religion. Where does that judgment? Where do you draw the line? You can't be overweight. You all should wear white. You shouldn't wear logos. You shouldn't watch sports. Like, who draws that line and where? But the truth is, if you don't judge people for that stuff, they're most likely to stop doing it. As long as somebody feels condemned, they continue. They go harder into those things. But if they don't feel condemned for it, it loses its power. I'm not going to tell anybody what to eat, drink, or anything like that, or what they put in themselves. It doesn't matter. I could always eat bacon. Yeah. I just don't know where you would draw the line there, because there isn't one. You just wind up in circles with people judging one another, because somebody's going to do something, that you don't do. And why is it that, like, if we wanted to get back into the law, you're not even allowed to be with anybody else as long as your ex-husband or whoever the last person was that you slept with, according to the Bible. If we're talking about fornication, you're never allowed to be with anybody else again until that person's dead. Like, you can't just get with somebody, have kids, leave them, get with somebody else, have kids, leave them. Like, under the law and under sin, you can't do that. You can't just tell somebody you're the only one, be with them, you guys argue, split up that family, then you get with somebody else, say you're the only one, you have more kids, you argue, you split up that family, and you keep rinsing and repeating until you die. I mean,
It's about the size of it.
in real life, it doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. The reason people want this monogamy is jealousy and envy. It's, oh my God, what if they had fun with somebody else? Well, they have in their mind already, or that girl that you were with whenever she went to the doctor, he was handsome, young, and rich, and he could have taken care of her better than you could have. I mean, what? Don't make her lie to you and say that wasn't the case, because it was. Jesus ended sin. We don't even have to worry about it. It doesn't matter who does what with who. Who cares? Why does that affect you? It doesn't. Oh my God, what if they had fun or something? Why spend your life arguing and in pain because of something somebody else did with someone else? It's nothing to you. Nothing at all. You're going to die. You can go straight to heaven. This isn't your home. This isn't your final resting place. It's not even something to let your heart raise for. Well, abuse is only involved because of the relationship. Abuse gets involved because of lust. You ever watched criminal shows? It's all about sex, and that's the very thing that Jesus fulfilled. Sex is what got us in this predicament. Jesus came and ended that. People are like, oh, they didn't love me enough, or they liked this person more, or nobody wanted me, or they, whatever it was. If you can't be together with somebody, you don't really love them. If you can't stay with somebody, or multiple, like even friendships, me and Don or something, you don't really love somebody if you can't be in the same place or talk to each other.
Yeah, people don't
If you go
realize
back and
that.
read what Jesus said, the main thing that he preached was unity. That's it. Everybody says he preached hell the most or something like that, but he preached unity the most. You couldn't even pray to God if you did something wrong to your brother. You weren't even allowed to pray to God. You weren't praying to God anymore because you did something wrong to somebody else. And I agree with Aaron. Act like kids on a playground. you know because
Yeah, people don't
you
real.
can twist it. Don't twist it in your head what we're thinking. Oh, we should all just get together and sleep with each other and blah. No, it doesn't matter either way is what I'm saying. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Not something to focus on. You shouldn't go for it. You shouldn't manipulate anybody into anything. You shouldn't nothing. Just focus on truth, God, and the next life.
Yeah, people don't realize that love is truth and truth is love. They're one and the same.
Nobody is mean and hateful for no reason. Everything somebody does is for a reason. Whether they feel trapped with you, whether they feel like they're giving all to the relationship and you're not doing as much, they're the ones that have to cook. They're the ones that have to clean. They do all the shopping and you just sit here and do this. Like, no matter what it is, they're mean and hateful for a reason. It's always judgment of the flesh. Yeah. Well, it's really easy to live. You're doing it right now. What about all those times whenever maybe you were in a relationship back in the day, and I mean your heart rate just went up, you guys screamed and yelled at each other till you were blue in the face, and then now it's nothing. Years later, nothing. Who knows what it was? She was going to take you to court for the kid. She was going to do this. Oh my God, so much stress, so much pain, so much this, and we tried so hard together, and now it's nothing. It's nothing, you know. Um, just everything should be nothing like that. You really shouldn't be any happier about living than dying. That's the truth of knowing God. You shouldn't be any happier if today's your death day or if today's your great life day, you know. Whenever it comes to God, that should be your focus. That's it. You can be a virgin or you can have multiple people. It does not make you one bit different in your heart or better in the flesh. It doesn't. Whichever one works for you is what you should do. Swisha Sweet and Tobias, you're both good people. You just don't know each other yet. You might be saying things a little bit different, but you just don't know each other yet. Yeah, just chill out. It really wasn't anything. The things that happen to you really aren't anything. Don't you have to judge somebody for your heart rate to go up, for things to start getting out of whack. You got to start doing that judgment thing, and all you'll do is go in circles with each other, whether it's friends, family, relationships. You just go in circles. Well, you did this. Well, you did this. Oh, well, I did that because you did. Well, you did that. Well, I did that because you did this. And you're trying to go back to who threw the first stone in the first place, you know, and it doesn't even matter because the honest to God truth is in people's hearts, they both had the same desires in the flesh. Yeah, don't worry about tomorrow or anything. Yeah, in the flesh, we're all just hypocrites if we start arguing with somebody else. It's just the truth of God. He set us free from sin. That's the most amazing thing. That is the actual message. You know, Christianity ended, Jesus already returned. That's something anybody can get just by looking at what happened back then. But that's not the message of salvation. The message of salvation is everything is delivered back to God. There's no more sin, so don't judge one another because you can only hurt somebody else if you judge them. You cannot murder somebody unless you judge their flesh first. You can't steal from somebody if their kids are just as important as your kids. You know, you can't. You have to judge somebody's flesh for all this violence to happen. So we have this life where we're allowed to not judge anybody, not be upset about things, and then just move on to the next whenever we die in a better place. There's no point in protecting ourselves. Sin was condemned in the flesh. Sin is what the flesh wants. You're born of sex, so it desires those things. Anybody that says that it doesn't would be not telling the truth because you're literally shaped in it. Your bones were made in it. Your body was made in it. You wouldn't exist without it. That's why it's the most popular thing in the world. So sin is everything that pertains to that. You're dying. Your flesh doesn't want to feel bad. So it doesn't matter what you put in it to make yourself feel better, you know. It doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter what you drink. That stuff just goes in the toilet, you know. That doesn't matter. Evil is what you do to somebody else. But if you don't condemn somebody for the flesh, you cannot do evil. If you're doing evil to somebody, lying, manipulating, stealing, murder, you know, evil to women and children, taking from an innocent child, you know, something like that, you have to judge them first to be less than you, or you have to judge yourself to be condemned first and feel like crap, so you do it because how bad you feel about yourself. Either way, it all starts from flesh judgment. And that's the beauty of what God did through Christ. He finished it all and took it all away, so we don't have to have that anymore. Sorry, Don, I kind of talked forever. I put him to sleep. It's my voice. It's that win Ben Stein's money. Yes. Are you awake, Don?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I there was a moment there, I almost drifted off, but I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't let myself drift off, but I had to fight it there for a minute. But I'm back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I was talking too long. The Ten Commandments were given for the wicked, not for the righteous. You don't have to tell good people not to murder. And if you go and tell a good person not to murder, you just gave them the knowledge of murder. So you did evil to them. It was given to, like Paul said, it was given to murderers and thieves. That's what the law was given for. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 said it was the ministration of death and condemnation, and it was done away and abolished. If you do good and you seek God, you're not going to do the things that the Ten Commandments said were evil, you know? Micah said be. But can't we still believe that God is the way and that the Bible has been fulfilled and uphold a godly standard? What is a godly standard? Is what I told you not the godliest standard? Not to judge somebody else? Not to try and tie them down and control them and say, don't do this. I will not love you if you do this. I will not love you if you do that. Why would we judge people harsher than what God did? I guess because we're evil and God is good. Jesus had the most right to condemn anybody else, and he came to forgive and end sin. He's the only one that lived perfect, and he came to end it. Everybody else who cannot live the way Jesus lived is down here judging one another. Well, there's no such thing as sin. Sin and evil were different. Evil existed
Yep.
before Satan ever even came.
Yeah, sin was condemned in the flesh, but evil was in your heart.
Sin didn't enter the world until Adam and Eve had a fallen flesh. That's what brought sin. That godly standard is to not judge anybody for that stuff. Not try to hold on to somebody if they're wanting to do something else, you know. Love them just the same, not just because they didn't love you and you weren't the only person in the world. Like, what is that even? That's like people with joint Facebook
Um,
accounts, you know, where that guy has that weird look on his face, like,
uh,
hey, look who I got. And the girl has that look like he doesn't
uh,
know what I've done, you know.
no, actually, Brandon Braun 7, I'm not out cold. Where did you get that from?
You were for a minute, you're snoring a little bit. But you
Oh,
woke
I
back up.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't even hear myself swearing.
I told him it's probably because my monotone voice, you know, that Ben Stein's money. If you have dry eyes, get clear eyes to moisturize.
Well, sometimes it's a long day at work, so that could have something to do with it too.
Yeah, no, you walk there and walk back and work all day. I'd be sleeping too.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller, yeah. I like it whenever I doze off like that. That's usually whenever I have my visions to answer questions. It's about as long as I'm asleep for it, just for a minute. And you see something impossible that you couldn't even thought of. Satan chose evil, and then Satan brought sin to humans. Yeah, and they chose what Satan said. God was the creator. They weren't supposed to create on their own through lust, but they had a choice to. They were able to create on their own and become as gods, knowing good and evil, being able to create and destroy. God didn't really create it. It does say that God created evil, but it says he separated the light from the darkness, you know? He just gave mankind free will. That's all it really means. Satan had free will. You have free will in heaven. You're just less likely to fall. I don't know why you think that you shouldn't act in such ways. Can you imagine all the stuff that you would be judged for if you weren't allowed to act in those ways? Like, think about your past for a minute and ask if you really want to be judged for those things or not, Because don't judge anybody else. You'll be in a constant state of repentance, like as if Jesus didn't finish his work. Hey, what's up, Corey? Don's asleep. I've
So,
been talking
Corey?
in monotone for a long time. I don't know. I mean, he's
No,
been
I'm not
asleep.
asleep.
Sorry. He's been
No, I'm
asleep.
not asleep. I'm not asleep now. I'm fine now, but I saw Corey came on there,
Yeah. I haven't seen him in a minute.
but it wasn't an actual tree, Tobias. That's a metaphor. Yeah,
Sin, God had given them a law. So sin came because they didn't listen to that law, you know? But God's law wasn't actually anything about, here's an apple and it looks great, but don't touch it. That's not what it was. God simply gave them free will. That's all that God gave them. That was the law that he gave them. If they ever chose their own way to create humans, that would be it. He didn't want them to eat it. He told them not to. Can you imagine how that would make God? Telling them don't eat this, but I really want you to eat it. Then what hope do we have if that is the way that God is? Why are we searching for truth, arguing on the Zap, or looking for a manipulative creator? He didn't want them to eat it. He just simply gave them free will. You can't have free will unless there's light and darkness. But people take out the fact that we get to choose. They always want to put the blame somewhere else, like we don't get to choose. Yeah, I wouldn't be here if they didn't eat it. You're right. Probably wouldn't. But I'm here. It wouldn't have hurt me any if I wasn't here.
that's weird. Is it
What?
raining outside? No, I just thought I heard it sound like it was raining outside. Maybe not.
We had some storms here today. Tornado warning right next to us.
Wow. Hope everything's all right.
No, we're fine. I don't know what all happened a couple towns over. I don't know if it got bad enough. All right, I guess I'll just go ahead and it's kind of a slow night. I thank all my friends for being here and all the questions, but I'll be back on tomorrow. And Game Changing just came in, but I just started slowing down talking about getting off here, Game Changing. I'll be back on at 8 o'clock tomorrow, though. Yeah, we're all here, but it's fine. We're allowed to create beings, man. We're made as gods, dude. If you didn't create your children or if your parents didn't create you, you wouldn't be here. They created you. That was their choice, and now you have your own choice. Why do people not want that choice? Why do they not want to be? That's the coolest part of life. You can create and destroy. You make that choice. You're in a real battle. And everybody's looking for it, but then they want to muddy it up or mix it, Everybody's online every day in their own minds and hearts every day, judging one another and themselves, whether or not they're good and what is true. But they don't want what's actually true, Honesty, truth.
Yeah, they
They
don't
want
want
to
honesty.
mix it all up.
They don't want honesty and truth because then their own dishonesty gets exposed.
Yeah. People are paddling in the streets here. Yeah, I saw that, man. There's some crazy flooding going on in California.
They said they got more to come.
Yeah, hopefully you're good out there, man. But I'm going to go ahead and just go. Thank you, Don, for being here. My plan was this time to just let you talk the most, and you see how that turned out. That's why I asked you if you were coming, because
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired. I wanted you to talk the most.
Well, the next time maybe I'll try to talk the most.
Yeah. All right, guys. Adios.
Amigos.
Thanks a lot, Don. See you later, Aaron. Hope everything's
Yep.
good on what's going on with you, Aaron. See you later, Game Changing. I get on at 8 every day now, so Eastern. All right. See you later, Crow Call. It's always good to hear from you, man. See you later, Hendrik Sikori. See you guys. God bless. Bye, Brianna. See you in 2 seconds.
I'll give
See
you
you
a
later, man.
call afterward. I'll give you a call afterward to tell you about my dream, Derek.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right. Talk to you in a minute.
Yep.
All right. Bye.